Hey everybody, so I am back from vacation and ready to do videos again. So let's talk about the Matt Martin trade a little bit. This was a request. This trade happened at the beginning of July, and I didn't really talk about it because I didn't think it was that big of a deal. And there were a lot of other things going on at the time. You know, obviously early July is just signing after signing, tons of free agency stuff. There was a lot going on, and this kind of slipped through the cracks. So I'm going to talk about it now. Matt Martin got traded back to the New York Islanders from the Maple Leafs for goaltender Eamon McAdam. Now, this isn't a huge deal as far as, magnitude of trades go. Matt Martin is a fourth liner, tough guy, fighter. And Toronto just really didn't want him anymore. He barely played the second half of last season, didn't play at all in the playoffs. His time in Toronto was up. Eamon McAdam is a 23-year-old goaltender prospect. He went to Penn State. Was pretty good there. Has since then has split the last couple of years between the AHL and the ECHL. He's okay. He's not a guy that I think really has much potential of being an NHL goaltender. He's definitely an organizational depth goalie. His save percentage has been right around 900 since turning pro. As low as 880s, somewhere around there, and at as high as 910 in the ECHL. But he gives up between 2.5 and 3 goals a game, and makes a save about 90% of the time. Not great numbers, certainly not a superstar in the making, but not bad. I don't ever envision him playing for Toronto. I think he's going to play for, Toronto, but the Marlies, I don't think he's going to make the Maple Leafs anytime soon. This deal mostly was about getting Matt Martin out of Toronto. Matt Martin is making $2.5 million a year, and that is a lot for the kind of player that he is. Now, I really like Matt Martin, but he's overpaid at $2.5 million per year. Martin is obviously a very physical player. He fights in on the forecheck, doesn't give you much offense, but he can, he knows his role and he plays it well. When you're in the cap situation that Toronto is, where you just paid John Tavares $11 million a year, and you have all of these young star players up, coming up that you need to sign, you can't be paying fourth liners like Matt Martin, who don't even really crack the lineup half the time, $2.5 million a year. That doesn't work in the salary cap era. So Martin needed to go for Toronto. The Islanders were the perfect place for him to go. He's going to play there. He's a fan favorite in New York. Obviously, he spent the first many years of his career with the Islanders before signing with Toronto in free agency a couple years back. The Islanders aren't going to be very good next year. They've lost their superstar. They're a rebuilding team. Martin is going to play in New York. He's going to be an everyday player there. The fans are going to love him, and the team may not win a lot of games, but he's going to make the games more exciting because he will fight and he will throw big hits and he will play physically. And even if the Islanders lose, it's still going to be entertaining to watch with Matt Martin on the ice. So it's good for the Islanders that they get Martin back, and I think he's going to help them. It's good for Toronto to get him off their salary cap books and move that contract, because they are not in a position to be paying fourth line guys $2.5 million a year. The issue I have as far as Toronto goes is they did not bring in anyone to replace him. No other physical player, no cheaper option that does the same thing that Martin does. And when you look at Toronto's roster now, they have virtually no toughness or physicality on their roster. With Komarov gone to the Islanders as well, and now Martin gone, who is going to stand up for these star players in Toronto. When Austin Matthews gets run through the boards, who's going to go after somebody? There is nobody in Toronto left that plays physically that way and can fight. I understand that the game is changing and it's a more speed and skill based game, but you still have to have some team toughness, and you have to have somebody who can stand up for your players. Look at all the successful teams, not just through NHL history, but even just last year. The Washington Capitals have had Tom Wilson and Brooks Orpik, and overall were a fairly physical team. I mean, you had Jay Beagle. Alex Ovechkin himself is a very physical player. TJ Oshie's a physical player. Washington won the Stanley Cup with physical players and played very physical hockey in the playoffs. Tampa Bay, who they played against in the conference final, also Ryan Callahan, Cedric Paquette, and Chris Kunitz. That fourth line was incredibly physical. Braden Coburn on the back end. Yanni Gourde on the third line. They had Anthony Cirelli played physical as well. Tampa Bay had a very physical team and played that way in the playoffs. You go out west, Vegas. Vegas has Ryan Reeves on their team, Derek Englund, Braden McNabb, Will Carrier. They're plenty tough. Winnipeg, who they played in the conference final, probably was the most physical team of the entire playoffs. Their first round matchup with Minnesota was downright nasty. Then they had an extremely physical series with Nashville, and then they lost to Vegas in a physical. I mean, Winnipeg was extremely physical in the playoffs last year, especially, but even just as a team. And you look at year after year, the playoffs are extremely physical. It's extremely physical hockey, way harder hitting than the regular season, less fighting, but overall more physical. Toronto is not built for that at all, and they're going to continue to lose in the playoffs unless they gain some team toughness. You can't have 18 skilled skaters going around out there and just deking around guys and trying to skate. They're going to get run through the glass in the playoffs if they don't add some sort of team toughness. And with Martin gone, you really are lacking team toughness in Toronto, and you have nobody that fights. Nobody in that Toronto roster is somebody who can give you 8 to 10 fights a year. If Toronto's roster stays the same, and I don't expect any big changes at this point, their leading fighter next year is probably going to be Nazem Kadri, and he's probably going to have like 2 or 3 fights. That is a huge, that's a huge area that's lacking with the Maple Leafs, and they're going to get pushed around by certain teams. Even Pittsburgh for a while was a really soft team that didn't was a speed and skill team, and they didn't have a lot of toughness. You look at what they've done. They brought in Ryan Reeves, and they traded him and got him to Vegas, but they've brought in Jamie Oleksiak, and now they've signed Jamie Oleksiak to a pretty decent contract for the next few years. Jamie Oleksiak was an important player for the Penguins last year because he brought that toughness, and they are another team without a lot of guys in that lineup that play that way, but they have Oleksiak, and he's their guy. Toronto doesn't have that guy. So now, if I'm a team in the Eastern Conference that plays physically, like a Boston Bruins, like a Philadelphia Flyers, like a Tampa Bay Lightning when they want to, like a Washington, certainly, I am going to push Marner around. I am going to push Matthews around. I am going to go after those kids who don't play tough hockey and run them through the glass. And nobody on Toronto is going to do anything about it because they don't have anyone in the lineup to do something about it. So if I'm Toronto, I'm looking for a much cheaper option than Matt Martin, but I'm looking for someone who can stand up for their teammates the way Matt Martin can. And even if they're not an everyday player, have them on the roster so that when you play a team like a Boston or a Washington who might push your star players around, you have somebody who can answer for that. And right now, Toronto doesn't have that, and I am very interested to see which teams take advantage of that next year, and certainly come playoff time next year, because we all know Toronto is going to be a playoff team next year, given how stacked they are up front. How are they going to handle the physicality of playoff hockey? I don't have a lot of faith in that, with their current roster. So I think this is a loss for Toronto as far as toughness goes and team toughness. It's a good move for them as far as the salary cap is concerned, though. And for the Islanders, Martin, obviously a fan favorite, and will make Islanders games more fun to watch as long as he stays healthy and is his usual self next year. So that's what I think about that trade. Let me know what you guys think down in the comments below. Like, comment, share, subscribe, follow on social media. Check out offthewallhockey.com. All those links are down in the description. Keep spreading the word about this channel. Let's keep this thing growing. Thank you guys so much for watching. Hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll talk to you guys soon.